I don't care what anyone says, you have to watch out for the Washington Nationals.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. To the everydayers out there, you know where to find me at Ryan Clary 11, always on Twitter, and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. Later on in today's show, the Nationals are heading up to the 6. They're going up to Toronto and facing those Blue Jays. And also, there is a great pitching matchup tonight with Josiah Gray going up against Kevin Gausman. That's going to be a fun little series, and game 1 is tonight. And of course, it's a Monday, so it's the National Stock Report as we give you the latest on individual performance, who's been hot and who's been not. That'll be later on in today's show, as I will admit, there is a couple starting pitchers in this mix who have ultimately surprised me greatly so far this season. We'll get into that a little later on, but also let's just talk about the recent streak this Nationals team has been on. And also, if you remember, back in the second half of the season, about a week and a half ago, we previewed the rest of the series, and the Nationals, they had the toughest schedule for the second half of this baseball season. And you may ask yourself, or let me remind you, who we have played since that time has been. You won at home against the Red Sox. You won that series. You're at home against the Phillies. You win that series. You go up to New York against the Yankees. You take that series. And then just last week, after going 0-6 against the Marlins for the entire season, you take 2 of 3 in Miami. That is 4 straight series wins on my books. And that's really kind of what this contest has been about. This Nationals team, you can always make the argument they don't have the talent. They aren't a postseason team, which, yes, I do agree with. But you cannot tell me something about this team. What this team kind of separates themselves from the pack with is they just find ways to win. They do. If it's not the starting pitching, the bullpen will click. They will come in. They will save the day. They've done it multiple times over now. Also, with the offense, if it's not Lane Thomas and C.J. Abrams getting it done, then in the past it would be Stone Garrett who's gotten the job done. Keibert Ruiz, Jake Alou coming up in big spots. That is something that I have noticed with this Nationals team. They are never out of it. Even when you're down multiple runs, you don't feel as if you're out of it. If you're down going into the 9th inning, especially by just 1 run, and you're getting up there to any point in this batting lineup, you feel comfortable. There is a comfortness with this Nats team that we just simply haven't had in the past. This is not your normal, typical Nationals team of 2022, losing games, finding new ways to lose all those different games. This year, they are finding ways to win games, even after a bad start, even after an awful April, where the Nationals just could not even luck their way into a win, where C.J. Abrams was struggling just a little bit. All those different things, all this pitching and the bullpen stuff, everything has changed. I couldn't even pinpoint what it is. You can't even say at this team and say, this is why we're doing better. The bullpen ERA is still one of the back half in all of baseball. The starter ERA is not all that good. Your batting average is relatively up considering the rest of the league, but you're still not doing as much damage. You also just lost one of your best power hitters with Stone Garrett. And now you have a former top prospect with Carter Kieboom who's been coming up and who's been playing really damn well as well. So this Nats team, every single day, it just feels as if they find new ways to win. And in yesterday's ball game, as they were going for the sweep, they lost. But also, here's the thing. It's not the end of the world. Because this Nationals team, they put enough money in the bank account to where we know when they're on and when they're not. Yesterday, the offense just simply didn't really have it, even considering they had 7 hits in the game, but they only scored 1 run. And we all know what happened in the middle of the game, who I feel like got kind of pinned as the new Freddie Freeman for the Washington Nationals. Jorge Soler goes yard against us. He also hits a double. Jorge Soler, and of course, accounted for the 2 only runs there. You should never pitch to him. And I remember talking about this the last time we played the Marlins. I don't want to pitch to Jorge Soler. This guy has some way, just found ways to kill this Nationals team. He's always done it. This year in particular, he's taken a whole step up in that department. He is the Nats killer of 2023. Adding 2 hits in yesterday's game, one of them being a home run and the other being a double. Stay away. Do not touch. Do not even think about it when you're hitting again, or when you're pitching against Jorge Soler. I don't want to see this team pitch against him. I don't want to see this team get taken advantage of from someone who just puts the ball out of the ballpark anytime he sees a curly W hat out there. No more of that. But besides all that, Jorge Soler, Nats killer. Simple as that. I think you guys understand that just fit. But even more into yesterday's ball game and really over the series as a whole, how about Carter Kieboom? Carter Kieboom hitting another home run. And in yesterday's ball game, he went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. But even then, Carter Kieboom, he's starting to show me a little bit of something. And as we've kind of gotten into this and progressed with him, the expectations for him are pretty slim, for being honest. At this moment in time, you're not really expecting Kieboom to be an everyday kind of contributor. But Davey Martinez and the staff are going to be giving him opportunities to start over at third base, especially when there's lefties on the mound. Now, when you have an opener yesterday, there's no real lineup consideration there. Because when you have 5 different guys pitch, or whatever amount was for Miami, I believe they had 6 pitchers in yesterday's game. That's just kind of what you're going to get. But with Carter Kieboom, what he has kind of shown me so far is that the thought that we all kind of had, that we want to see a little bit more from him, we want to make sure that this case is closed with him, or if it's still open. Carter Kieboom certainly has earned the opportunity to get these reps. And I think down the line, it's actually going to be a key contributor if he can produce. Because the whole question with Carter Kieboom has always been the consistency with him. But even then, he hasn't really shown us too many glimpses. You can make the case back in 2019. When he first made his debut, that was probably the best of what we saw with Kieboom. 2021, he showed a little bit. He got hot for a few weeks. I remember that. But even then, it just hasn't been a smooth ride for him. The former top 20 prospect in all of baseball. Really, any site that you check. That's how promising he was at one point. But now we get here. He's 25. Are we sure he's done yet? Because if Kieboom keeps booming, then what's going to happen with this team? What's going to happen with the future at third base? Brady House is still going to be the long-term plan there. Carter Kieboom's not going to be throwing him off whatsoever. But there's an opening at second base. There's an opening at first base. There are openings, and if Carter Kieboom can find his way to hit, he will certainly be in the lineup. Now, the consistency is going to have to be there because, as of right now, only through a handful of games, he's batting .222 with an .874 OPS. If you take those home runs away, it's all not really that good. But Carter Kieboom is certainly someone that I'm going to keep watching as the season goes on. But also, let's highlight real quick the starting pitching from this weekend. Trevor Williams looked really damn good considering what we have seen over the last few weeks. And last week in Philly, he looked, or not in Philly, up in Williamsport rather, same state, whatever. Trevor Williams looked really good yet again. In yesterday's ball game, giving up 2 earned runs, he gave up that home run, 5 strikeouts over 7 innings pitched, and only 2 walks. Again, when you get he has his ERA down to a 4.82, back when it was ballooned up to a 5-something. Trevor Williams, I think you know how I feel. I think we all know how we feel about him. You're kind of just waiting until the carpet is pulled out from him. But at this moment, if you're going to continue to pitch the way that you pitch over your last 2 starts, then it's going to be a pretty easy run. And when the Nationals, when they can get those runs on the board, then I think that's going to be something because we did score first yesterday. But then, of course, Jorge Soler and what he did, the 2-run home run heard around the world. It was off the bat. It was way gone. So outside of that, though, Jake Irvin, Trevor Williams, pretty damn good outings over the weekend. and as well as Yohan Adone. We'll talk about all those guys coming up a little bit later on. And of course, next is your national stock report as the Nats. They've been hot. So who has been hot individually? I'll get you up to date on that a little bit later on, just after this. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about our friends over at Dave. And guys, Dave is just something, because at one time or another, we all need a little financial help. That's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need a hand between paychecks and can help you build credit by settling extra cash and advances on time. And Dave is a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. And when you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. Download Dave today and dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB. You get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Now we get back into it, as it is a national stock report Monday. Who's been hot, who's been not, who's been up, who's been down, whatever you want to say, whatever it may be. Let's start off with a stock up, per usual, like we always do. I believe this is the first time he's been on the stock up here in quite some time. It is rookie sensation, Jake Irvin. And over the last few starts, ever since Jake Irvin had that start skipped back in mid-July, you've seen a little bit of a different side of Jake Irvin. Really, since over the last few starts in particular, Jake Irvin is looking like a real deal. And earlier this season, I was like, I don't really see him as a starter. I kind of see him as a long-term reliever kind of down the line. I think I'm ready to forfeit that take. I think at this moment in time, Jake Irvin is absolutely someone who's going to be in the rotation next year. And also, He should be. He deserves the opportunity to get into that role. Because over his last 7 starts, he's got a 3.29 ERA in 41 innings pitched. And also in that time frame as well, he's walked 12 batters compared to 40 strikeouts. A 1.22 whip. It's not the end of the world. It's not the best whip ever, but it's still pretty good. And it kind of goes to show you he's getting his walk rate down a little bit. His strikeout rate is also getting up there yet again, back like it was in the minor leagues. Jake Irvin is starting to show me something. And over the weekend, down in Miami too, against Jorge Soler, the guy that I covet so much, pretty damn good start for Jake Irvin. And this Nats team, they may have found themselves something alongside Jake Irvin. So we'll have to keep an eye out for him. But again, one more start like that, I'm going to wave my white flag. He's a starter in the future. Stock down for Mason Thompson. And now let's get into it. Yesterday, he actually looked pretty good in his 1 inning of relief. Overall, though, it has not been good. Over his last 4 1/3 innings pitched, 8 earned runs, only 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and 14 hits. At one point this season, myself, I thought Mason Thompson had probably the biggest upside as far as any of our Nationals relievers go. But at this moment in time, you cannot tell me that you have put faith in Mason Thompson. Anytime that he has come into the game at this moment, it just doesn't feel safe. It doesn't. It just does not feel safe whatsoever. There's no security blanket with someone like Mason Thompson at this time because there is no consistency. He needs to find a way to try to, 1, pound the zone, and 2, get his stuff to start working yet again. Get back in later in counts, because as we've seen, a lot of these issues with Josiah Gray as of recent too, Mason Thompson is getting down in the count early, and he's also missing on his fastball, which could be electric if he were to hit his spots. But it's not as simple as that. It just hasn't been for Mason Thompson. And as we kind of thought, or as I thought, I won't pin you in this, As I thought this bullpen was going to be the best thing about this Nationals team. It certainly hasn't been the best. It also hasn't been the absolute worst over the last few weeks, at least. But Mason Thompson's stock down for him. It just hasn't come into fruition as of yet. Stock up for utility guy, and may I say ultimate utility guy, Jake Alu. Jake Alu had the game-tying single on Saturday. And also, this is kind of something that I think we've all noticed with Jake. Anytime he's come up in big situations, it feels like he comes up to the plate and hits his best. He just does. As simple as that. Jake Alu just kind of has this clutch gene in him where he's getting big-time hits for this team as a rookie. And when you're telling me that, big-time hits, rookie utility guy, that's what you like. That's the kind of combination of a player that you want, even on a postseason team. Jake Alu may not be an everyday starter. You don't need to tell me that. We understand that. But he's ultimately proving something that he's got a little bit left in the tank. This guy is still not someone that you should just push to the side for whichever prospect in the world. Jake Alu is coming up in big situations, and he's driving guys in. He's playing solid defense. Jake Alu has been really impressive as a utility guy, playing in multiple different situations, playing in the outfield, second, third, whatever it may be, he can play there. That is value to a team. As we talked about with Ildemaro Vargas, if you can be solid defensively and play that utility type outfield / infield positions, you're going to have a place in Major League Baseball. And I think Jake Alu is starting to touch that surface. Not to say he's some ultimate utility guy that every team's going to want to prize, but he's starting to show something, to say the least. And you're starting to see just a little glimpse of magic when it comes to these Nationals prospects, as of course also Jacob Young gets the call up over the weekend, gets his first start in yesterday's game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but Jake Alu, really impressive, multiple big-time hits for this Nats team, and that is something that we'll certainly be watching going forward. Stock down, another stock down for C.J. Abrams. Nothing concerned here. I love C.J. Abrams. I would give him a contract extension yesterday. He deserves it, in my opinion, and that is one of the top priorities heading into the offseason. But over the last 15 games, he's kind of come back to earth a little bit. And even then, he's gotten a little below earth if we're talking about that. A 179 batting average over his last 15 games, a 258 on-base percentage, and a 339 slug in that time frame. He's got 10 hits and 6 stolen bases. And the most troubling thing we could say, he's only got 6 stolen bases in the last 15 games, as if he was on pace for about 100 stolen bases over the last month. But jokes aside, that's not the issue here. 6 stolen bases, I'll take it over 15 games. But I need Abrams to put the ball in play more. You're striking out just a little bit more, and he's not really a strikeout guy. While his strikeout numbers aren't incredibly good, it's also not terrible either. But Abrams, if he can put the ball in play, and if he can just simply get on first base, we know what he can do on the base path. You know how hard it is to throw someone out of his speed. There's not many players in baseball that are faster than C.J. Abrams at this moment. And with stealing bases, he's gotten that craft down. He's proven that over time here in this season. But with what CJ has to do, it's as simple as this. Get back to what he was doing in mid to late July, early August as well, and get on base. Find ways to get on. Be scrappy. Be that kind of terrible base runner that pitchers do not want to have behind their back over at first base. Be that menace. And I think if CJ Abrams were to get back into that, and just simple as this, put the ball in play, get on base, find different ways to get on, maybe even bunt every now and then. I hate bunting, but with CJ Abrams and his speed, throw the defenders off a little bit. You're going to have to force them to make a play. And I think when CJ Abrams kind of gets back to that part of what he was in July and August, you'll see him start to take off once again. Not the end of the world. CJ Abrams has been great. He's turned a ton of heads this season. But over the last 15 games, I need to see just a little bit more from the young kid. Stock up for Mr. Pickle Juice himself, Yohan Adon. Over on Friday night, after kind of getting rocked in his last time around, he went 6 innings pitched against this Marlins team and only gave up 3 hits for an offense that has killed us over 2023. He set the tone for this series in game one on a Friday night in Miami. What a way to start out. And that is kind of what you want to see from Adon as David Martinez announced this six-man rotation going forward. You're starting to get looks at Jake Irvin and all these different young guys, but as well as Yohan Adon, who is kind of the forgotten prospect. Because back in 2021, when he made his debut in game 162 against the Red Sox, he looked really good. Everyone was clamoring for Yohan Adon. We wanted to see more of him. He entered the rotation last year, opening day, and it was not good. Got sent down to AAA. It was even worse there, if you believe it or not. And this season, all not that great in AAA either, but since coming up to the big leagues, he's been fine. He's been putting together some good starts here and there, but again, kind of like the rest of them, he's going to have to find ways to build off starts. Because he only struck out 3 batters, but really what stuck out to me with Adon was he only walked 0 batters. Only. He walked 0 batters in total. That's pretty good in one start and going 6 innings pitch against a team that has killed us over this season. Overall, yet again, another very impressive week from this Washington Nationals squad. So going forward, it's going to be interesting, and that's really that. But of course, the Nationals, they do play the Toronto Blue Jays again, not again, but they're playing tonight up in Toronto in the Rogers Center in that dome. We'll preview that just after this. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about our friends over at Sleeper. And guys, do you think that Riley Adams can hit a home run tonight against his former team, the Toronto Blue Jays, and Kevin Gausman? Well, I sure do. And on Sleeper, you can swing for the fences with up to 100-time payouts. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stat categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. And also, dynamic payouts are live. What are dynamic payouts, you may ask? Well, in short, each player projection now is a multiplier attached to it as opposed to preset multipliers based on the number of legs in a contest. With dynamic payouts also comes more stat categories to place contests on. You can get higher payouts than other apps with less picks. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And now we get back into it as the Nationals are heading up to the 6th tonight. If you know, you know. But they're going up to Toronto for the people who don't know. So this is going to be an interesting series. And again, I love the fact that we're playing all American League teams again. You play every single team in baseball over the course of a 162-game season. Some people may not like it. They're stuck in the old ways, which is fine. I'm still stuck in the old ways as well as far as the old unwritten rules of baseball go. But I love this. I love being able to see all these different teams, all the different talent every single year. That is just perfect for the game. And I don't think it'll ever go back to the old ways. But let's get into it. Before we get into it, though, let me kind of clear the air a little bit on where this Nationals team has been over the last, really, over 2 months at this point. Entering Sunday, the Nationals are 32-22 since June 24th, which is the best 54-game stretch for the Nationals since the team ended the 2019 season going 36-18. And also since July 8th, Washington is 26-16, which is the best record in the NL East in that time frame. This Nationals team, you can say what you want about them, but you cannot knock the scrappiness of this team. And I think going into tonight's game, you're going to see a lot of scrappiness because when you have Kevin Gausman on the mound, really the ace for Toronto and really their best pitcher by far, in my opinion, Kevin Gausman is going to be a tough out for this team, especially with all our heavy-hitting right-handed bats. But when you talk about players that stick out in this matchup, someone who just got to stock down, CJ Abrams. He could come up big in this series. But with Lane Thomas, everyone's like, oh, you can't hit right-handed pitchers. You may be right. It's fine. Lane Thomas will just knock one out of the yard tonight. But all jokes aside, this is going to be a very interesting game as Josiah Gray, who's been our best starting pitcher all year, is going up against their ace with the Blue Jays, Kevin Gausman. And this is a team that is fighting and clawing for a postseason spot at this moment in time in the American League. It's going to be an interesting series because as we get closer to October baseball, Toronto's going to have to win more. And don't you count out the Nationals just yet because, dare I say, you're not out of it yet. The Nationals are still not out of it, which I cannot believe what I am saying right now. They're 8 games back from a wild card spot, entering the month of September here in the next few days. It's going to be interesting. I'm not predicting a postseason spot. I am not predicting this Nationals team will make a run. But with the way they've been playing, as we know, a .620 winning percentage since July 8th. I don't know, man. We'll just have to see as this Nats team keeps on progressing. So thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. And of course, the Nationals play the Blue Jays tonight at 7:07 Eastern Time, as you can catch Kevin Gausman, Josiah Gray, and the rest of the Nationals and the Blue Jays. And the Nationals hometown broadcast is always on SiriusXM and as well as the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. And of course, it'll be an interesting matchup tonight. Riley Adams, will he get some at-bats? We'll just have to see and move on from there. I'll catch you guys on tomorrow's episode of Locked On. And of course, if JoJo Gray wins, then tomorrow it is a Gore day as well. I'll catch you on the flip side.